It's just my preference, really. This is a Galileo site. It's used through EBSCO, so that becomes important later on when we're citing our source. Alright, again, I'm off-site right now, so I am entering my password. That changes quarterly. Alright, and this is Literary Reference Center. I'm going to go right to Advanced Search, just because I like this option. I'll do the Minister's Black Veil again. The Minister's Black Veil. As you can see, I've searched this already. And I'm unchecking everything, because really there's only some specific stuff I'm after. I'm really just after literary criticisms. Everything else is not really gonna help in this context. So I'm just gonna click on literary criticism, and I only want things where I can access the full text online. I don't care about finding things at some other library somewhere. So I'm gonna click search. Alright, and so then you can see I've got 2 pages worth of articles or literary criticisms. The first one being about concealing Moses. The next one about the veil itself, probably about it being a symbol. About the work being a parable. Just another literary criticism. I'm not sure from the title what it's about. But I would click, if we want to see these articles, I'd just click on it. PDF full text. And it'll show me the article. And then I can read and search for information. Now, it is important. Literary Reference Center provides you with this information pretty much automatically, but it's important that you also, if you decide to use an article from Literary Reference Center, that you click on the title of the article, like I just did, say this is an article I want to use, and you get the citation information as well, which is going to be this information right here. When you go to print, sometimes it will offer to put it in MLA format for you if you want. So you can click on citation format, select MLA, and I click print, and it will actually print in a citation I can use on my works cited page in MLA format for me. I will have to add in some information, such as what library, which is going to be Georgia Military Library, Georgia Military College Library, my city and state, which should be Warner Robins, Georgia, and then the date and on which I accessed this information. But other than that, it's going to be pretty much in the correct format for me to kind of imitate. So those are the 2 main databases on the eLibrary. So that's kind of first thing we want to do. Now you only need 2 secondary sources for this paper, but say we need more sources, or we couldn't find very much on these databases. We could go to our local library and check out books on the topic, so we could just head over to Nola Brantley across the street. You'll probably want to ask the librarian for help, and you probably don't want to do interlibrary loan. Chances are you won't have enough time to receive the book. Then we could search academic websites for information just by going to Google, and then we would want to type in our search terms and then follow it with exactly what I have typed here. You want to have a bracket, just to highlight that for you, a bracket, then in URL equal .edu, and that'll turn up first. It'll show you first all the sites in which your search terms could be found that are .edu sites or academic sites. And some of this material would be appropriate to include because it's been written by a professor and is kind of out there for public consumption. We could search for books online through Google Scholar. Again, like I said, both of these are a little hit and miss, but there's some out there that you could use. And And if you do have questions about whether or not a source is appropriate, just ask your teacher. They'll be more than happy to tell you if a source is appropriate or not. Certainly anything that wouldn't fit the criteria I've described here may be of questionable appropriateness. Things like Wikipedia certainly are not appropriate. Most .coms are not appropriate. There's a lot of stuff out there that wouldn't be considered academic. Again, with these sources, you probably want to photocopy them or print them if they're brief, and highlight it, label quotes as A, B, C, or D, or use a note card system. Typically, when you're using a note card system, you have one set that has only the bibliography, so one set of note cards that you label them in number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, however many sources you have. So your number 1 source, you write down all the bibliographical information for that source. Your number 2 source, you write down all the bibliographical information for that source. Your number 3 source, same thing. And then when you go to take notes, you have a second set of cards. So all quotes that are, basically you'd have number 1 cards, number 2 cards, and number 3 cards, number 4 cards, however many sources you have. All your number 1 cards are going to list quotes from your number 1 source. All your number 2 cards will list quotes from your number 2 source. All your number 3 cards will list quotes from your number 3 source. This is kind of old school. But it's good if you're using books from a library or something like that where you don't want to photocopy a lot of things. To show you what this looks like, I found this site here, and I put it on the paper. So you can see what I'm saying here, like this person has number 1 source, and this is Morris Willie, My Cat Spit McGee is the book. And it was published by Random House in New York in 1999. And then they wrote some information about it. And then we have quotes, or things that we're going to use from it. So, like number 1, this is number 1. These both are labeled number 1, and we have quotes with the page numbers that we're going to use from this number 1 source. And so we know all this stuff is coming from this Willie Morris thing, Willie Morris book, I guess. And you can put a call number in the right-hand corner if you wish to, if you need to go back and find it again. And this provides you more information on how to do. You could do it in a notebook, just like you could do in a note card. We would start with the bibliographical information, and then we'd list out our quotes beneath it and the page numbers on which we can find those quotes. Really just sort of whatever makes sense to your brain. But just make sure you're keeping up with your bibliographical information and with what quotes are coming from what source. Okay.